right. Well, thank you. I think if Claire hasn't said already, both our chair and vice chair were not available today, so I'm chairing the meeting for today. So I'd like to welcome I'm Tracy Buxton, Mayor in Des Moines and representative to the Executive Board on SKIP for my city. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 2024 SKIP Executive Board meeting, and I call this meeting to order at, where's my time, 1:04 p.m. Claire, would you go ahead and call the roll?
Certainly. City of Auburn, Nancy Backus. I know she's absent today. And City of Kent, Dana Ralph. I know she's absent today, but we have Marina Hansen. Are you here, Marina?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. City of Burien, Liz Steed.
I'm here, thanks.
City of Covington, Christina Soltis. Don't think she's here yet. All right. City of Des Moines, Tracy Buxton.
I'm here.
Thank you. City of Federal Way, Brian Davis. I know he said he would be unable to attend. So Layla Wilson. Oh, we can't hear you, but I hear you.
No?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. City of Maple Valley, Sean Kelly.
I'm here, and that is a cute kid. So congratulations.
Thank you. City of Normandy Park, Eric Zimmerman. Mayor Zimmerman let me know he would not be able to attend today. City of Renton, Carmen Rivera.
Hi, and congratulations, Claire. That is a very cute baby.
Thank you. And City of SeaTac, James Lovell. Didn't see James. All right. And City of Tukwila, Thomas McLeod.
Here.
Thank you. And King County, just a reminder, Sonari Marshall's out on parental leave. So we have Sochi Makovich sitting in for King County.
Here, and Sunari should be back next month, I think, depending on the exact date of the next meeting. So another baby to look at next month.
I look forward to it.
Is that everyone?
That is everyone.
All right, thank you. We usually have a member of the advisory board joining us today, but no one was available to attend. So Claire, could you recognize any staff work group members that would like to introduce themselves?
Yes, thank you. I see a handful here. I'm going to start with Angie from the City of Renton, and then if you all wouldn't mind popcorning or coming off mute and introducing yourselves. Thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Angie Mathias. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager for the City of Renton, and here supporting Councilmember Rivera. Matt, maybe?
Yeah, Matt Torben, Community Development Manager, City of Maple Valley, supporting Mayor Kelly. Pass it to Michaela.
Michaela Daffern with King County, here supporting Sochi Makovich.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I don't see anybody else to pass it to.
Claire, can you see? I don't have a full screen here, so.
Oh, good. I see Marina Hansen, who typically serves on our staff work group. She's sitting in as alternate for the City of Kent. So she is serving on the board today.
Thank you. So Claire, did anyone submit written public comment?
We have not received any written public comment.
And do you see anyone here wanting to make public comment as a participant?
I do not see anyone wishing to make public comment.
All right, great. Well, we'll move on to the approval of the August 16th, 2024 minutes. Do I have the motion is to approve the minutes, the executive board meeting minutes for that date. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Sean, Maple Valley.
I have a second.
Tom and Tukwila will second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Or abstains? All right, the minutes for August 16th passed. So Chair, do we have any agenda modifications for today?
There's no agenda modifications.
Okay, and next up on the agenda is board business. So we've got the Housing Capital Fund project application review. We're set to begin our third year of providing essential funding for affordable housing projects in our subregion. So this year is the first where every SKIP member city has contributed funding to our Housing Capital Fund. We'll hear today about the 6 applications received, totaling over $9 million in requests in preparation to review the advisory board's funding recommendation next month. So I'll pass that off to you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So can everyone see my slides? All
Yes.
right, wonderful. So thank you. It is good to be back. So thank you all. I'm glad to have timed everything just right to return for this year's funding round of the SKIP Housing Capital Fund. And every year I try and do this, but I think everyone here really deserves recognition for the work that you've put in to get us to this point. And as SKIP board members, your councils and community look to you to represent them here in this space. Collaborating across 12 elected jurisdictions to pool over $4 million this year and over $11 million since we started pooling funds together is no easy feat. So thank you for being good partners in this work, for your engagement, and for your perseverance in moving the needle on affordable housing in South King County. I also want to recognize the City of Maple Valley for contributing funding for the first time to the Housing Capital Fund. So thank you, Mayor Kelly, Sean, and Councilmember Schroff, Victoria, for your leadership. The City of SeaTac also deserves recognition not only for their action to join SKIP earlier this year, but in contributing to the Housing Capital Fund $300,000 in unrestricted funds. So thank you to Councilmember Lovell, who's not here today, but for his leadership in SeaTac. So this is the first year that every SKIP member city is contributing to the Housing Capital Fund, as Tracy mentioned. And for this, I hope that you all feel proud of that accomplishment. It really does lay a strong foundation for SKIP to serve as a subregional force promoting the common needs and desires of South King County. So thank you all. All the information that will be presented to you today is available in your agenda packet, which was sent to you on Friday, October 11th at 5:28 p.m. from myself. And it includes summary memos of each of the projects that we'll review today. So to briefly review our timeline, on October 3rd, the advisory board reviewed project applications we received for the Housing Capital Fund and received a summary presentation of each project. An evaluation form was provided to each participating board member based on criteria established in the Housing Capital Fund guidelines, which you adopted April 19th of this year. Each advisory board member was asked to rank how well each project met each of SKIP's funding priorities and overall criteria. Participating board members were provided the complete application packet for each project submission. At the November 7th advisory board meeting, I anticipate a funding recommendation from the advisory board for your consideration at our next executive board meeting on November 15th. Because the next advisory and executive board meetings are a week apart, I will likely send you the advisory board's detailed recommendation the week of your meeting rather than in the agenda packet that Friday before we meet. So just to manage expectations on that for you. In anticipation of next meeting, I'm here today to present a summary overview of each of the projects so you have an idea of what you're considering when a recommendation from the advisory board comes forward at your next meeting. This is also a time to provide the opportunity for you to ask questions about the projects so we can follow up if needed and get clarity for you. I'll also be reviewing the changes on projects that previously received a SKIP award and who are applying again for additional funds from SKIP. Assuming the advisory board develops a recommendation by your next meeting, you will consider that recommendation, and if you concur, you will adopt the formal recommendation. You may also modify the recommendation as a board. Once we have a recommendation from the executive board, we begin seeking concurrence from the cities that contribute funds to the Housing Capital Fund, which is all 11 cities this year. So here is a high-level summary of the 6 applications that we received. We have our first applications for projects located in Renton, which advances the geographic equity we strive for in this process. There are 2 homeownership projects, 1 rehab or preservation project, 3 projects supporting families transitioning out of homelessness, a TOD project, and 3 projects who have previously been awarded SKIP funds. All of these projects reflect SKIP's funding priorities in some way, which will make this year's, I would say, very challenging in terms of selecting projects. So you'll see that the size of the projects also vary greatly, from 6 units to a 251 unit project. So the total funding requested is just under 9.3 million, up from 8.6 million last year. And we have 4.1 million available, down from 6 million available last year. However, about 2.8 million of the 4.1 million available this year is only eligible for those projects that qualify for House Bill 1590 funding, which has specific population requirements and must support households earning up to 60% AMI. We received approximately $7 million in requests that are eligible for this amount. Projects that aren't eligible for these funds total 2.3 million for only 1.3 million available. So you'll notice on the slide that all the project requests are eligible for Substitute House Bill 1406 and the unrestricted general funds contributed by CTAG. So this is to try and paint the picture for you early on about what the funding options are. As we discussed last year, and for those who are new to this process, due to limitations on SKIP staff capacity to handle multiple project contracts, I'll be requesting that the advisory board limit their recommendation to no more than 3 or 4 projects. It takes a lot of work, time and resources to develop funding contracts and financing documents that go along with these projects. So wanted that to be a consideration as they develop their recommendation to you. So let's go ahead and dive into the projects. I'll present them to you in the order shown on the slide, which is grouped by project type. Also important to note, all cities were notified of each project's intent to apply, and we did not receive any statements or letters of notification that would indicate a lack of support for any of these projects. And as a reminder, the board defers to the cities where a project is to be located and really does want to ensure they have an opportunity to express a lack of support should that be the case. And if that occurs, the project proposal does not move forward in the current funding cycle. All right, so Steel House is a 6-unit multifamily rental, low barrier permanent housing project with supports in Renton. The project will support households experiencing homelessness, earning up to 30% area median income or AMI. Each unit will have 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms and are intended to serve families. The project is a partnership between St. Stephen Housing Association and Wayback Inn, who are in the process of merging as an organization. The site is currently owned and operated by Wayback Inn and houses a transitional housing duplex for individuals experiencing homelessness. The project would phase out the site used as transitional housing, allowing all 6-month leases to end and tear down the existing structure. Wayback Inn intends to transfer ownership of the site to St. Stephen Housing as part of this project. St. Stephen Housing is a nonprofit organization and developed city park townhomes in Auburn in 2001 with funding from the State Housing Trust Fund, King County, the Gates Foundation, and support from the city of Renton. Wayback Inn is a longtime provider of transitional housing in Renton. So the project requests $2.37 million in the form of a grant. SKIP funds would be used for the demolition of the existing structure and new construction of a sixplex. The sponsor also submitted a funding request to the State Housing Trust Fund. SKIP funds sourced through House Bill 1590 are eligible to be used to support the entire request. The project is located across the street from the Bezos Academy North Highlands location, Meadowcrest Early Learning Center, and a playground. McKnight Middle School, Renton Highlands Park and Ride, multiple restaurants and retail stores along Sunset Boulevard, a pharmacy are all located within a half mile, and a grocery store is located within 0.6 of a mile. And St. Stephen Housing will provide on-site case management services. In terms of the project schedule, as mentioned, Wayback Inn operates a transitional housing residence currently on the site and has owned the property since 2016. Demolition and construction would begin at the end of 2025. The project would be move-in ready by the end of 2026. So this is the first year the project has applied to funders. As mentioned, they also submitted an application to the state's Housing Trust Fund should SKIP funds not be awarded to the project this year. Total development costs are $2.8 million, which comes to approximately $467,000 per 3-bedroom unit. And so after each of the presentations, I have an opportunity, a slide here for you all for us to pause, ask questions about that particular project before we move on to another project. So Chair would love to defer to you if there are questions from the board. Oh, you're on mute.
I have a limited view, but I think it places anybody who raises their hand at the top, correct? So it doesn't look like we have any raised hands.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on. All right, the TWG Pandean at Star Lake. So this project may look familiar for those who were on the board last year. Pandean at Star Lake secured an award from SKIP in the 2023 Housing Capital Fund funding round, totaling $1,170,000. Since that time, the project has been modified to appeal to other funders. The revised project is what I'll present on today, in addition to discussing the changes to the project from last year. So Pandean at Star Lake is a 251-unit multifamily mixed-use rental project in Kent, located adjacent to the Kent Star Lake Link light rail station. The project will support households earning between 30% AMI and 80% AMI. 47 units will support households up to 80% AMI. The project has been proposed as a 4% low-income housing tax credit development, or LIHTC is how I'll refer to it. This transit-oriented development, or TOD project, will provide a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. The project will include ground floor commercial space consisting of a K-12 learning center for low-income children operated by the Renton-based STEM Paths Innovation Network, or SPIN. The property was purchased by the developer in December 2022. The project is a 6-story building with 5 stories of affordable housing over 1 story of commercial space, which also includes 10 units of housing at the residential lobby level plus basement level parking. So the project requests $2 million from SKIP in the form of a deferred 1% interest non-forgivable loan to the LIHTC partnership. SKIP funds are requested to support new building construction. The 251 units includes 163 units for the general population, 59 units for families with children, and 29 units for families with children that require permanent supportive services and are at risk of being homeless. 24 units would be accessible units. The project includes 92 studios, 71 one-bedrooms, 36 two-bedrooms, and 52 three-bedrooms. So 29 units of the project are eligible for House Bill 1590 funds, which includes those units for families with children at risk of homelessness and require permanent supportive services who earn up to 30% AMI. Those units would be served by Vision House, which would provide on-site supportive services and set aside for families exiting the Vision House Family Transitional Housing Program and are ready for permanent housing at the Pandian. TWG will provide as-needed referrals to supportive services for those households residing in the 50 to 60% AMI units. So the project is in Kent off South 272nd Street and will be located adjacent to that future light rail station. Mark Twain Elementary School, the West Hill Medical Clinic, Safeway, a UPS store, a pet hospital, and other amenities are located within half-mile of the project. So as mentioned, the developer purchased the site in 2022, and TWG anticipates beginning construction at the end of 2025, and for the building to be move-in ready at the end of 2027. So this is the second year the project sponsor has applied to public funders. Last year, SKIP was the only public funder for the project, and we awarded them less than half of their ask due to their project timeline being farther out than the other projects that applied to us, and we exhausted all of the House Bill 1590 funds that year. They learned recently that they aren't eligible for state housing trust fund support because they are a for-profit developer and they don't have enough nonprofit ownership in the company to qualify for commerce funding. So King County exhausted their available funds last year, but likely will have TOD funds available this year. They are applying to SKIP again to be in alignment with their original request for local funds, which we couldn't support last year. So this year they are also seeking a 4% LIHTC award. They've secured support from SPIN, who would be occupying the commercial space. Total development costs are $126.7 million, and the cost per unit comes to $487,000. However, there is a detailed breakdown of costs by unit size in your memo. So your memo contains details on the differences between the project proposal from last year and this year, but I did want to present a summary of those changes to you. So the project has changed from 2 buildings to 1 building and removed the building that would have served seniors at 80 to 100% AMI. The new project doesn't include units for households transitioning out of homelessness or households with an intellectual or developmental disability or an IDD. They are no longer applying for the combo 4%, 9% LIHTC award, and they will stick solely with applying for the 4% LIHTC award. And it is also a smaller project by 90 units. They have added 80% AMI units, additional 50% AMI units, and 60% AMI units, and added more units for families with children and the general population. So any questions on this project?
I don't see any questions. So
We can keep moving. All right. So Burien Family Housing from Mercy Housing Northwest is a multifamily 91-unit rental project located near high-frequency transit in Burien. The project will support households earning between 30% AMI and 60% AMI with a focus on households with children, including 34 units set aside for families with children exiting homelessness and 18 units set aside for households with a physical disability. The project includes the redevelopment of a 4-acre site currently owned by Mary's Place, which operates an emergency shelter on site. Mary's Place will be donating 2 acres of the project site to Mercy Housing Northwest for the development of new affordable housing, while retaining over 1 acre of the site for the development of a new shelter to replace the existing one. The project will be 4 stories in size. The development is comprised of a mix of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. 52% of the units are family-sized 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. The project is a combination 4% and 9% LIHTC project. The project also secured 34 project-based vouchers from the King County Housing Authority and a Resident Services Award from King County to support the families leaving homelessness. So this project received a financial award from SKIP during our first funding round back in 2022. This year's request to SKIP is $2 million in the form of a deferred contingent forgivable loan. SKIP funds are requested to support new construction. SKIP's House Bill 1590 funds could support the 34 units set aside for families with children exiting homelessness and the 18 units set aside for households with a physical disability who also earn up to 60% AMI. The sponsor described the need for additional funding being due to rising construction costs resulting from inflation and a change in the tax credit equity pricing. The project is located adjacent to Mary's Place near the corner of Ambaum Boulevard Southwest and Southwest 130th Street in Burien. Several restaurants, a gas station, Salmon Creek Park, a church with a school and a grocery store are located within a half mile of the property. The project is also a block from transit with access to the Rapid Ride H line, providing access to downtown Seattle, and a bus route providing access to Bellevue. So Mercy Housing has had the land secured since 2022. Construction is anticipated to begin April of 2025 and for the building to be move-in ready by August 2026. The project has been awarded significant financial contributions from King County, the State Housing Trust Fund, Amazon, and as mentioned, was awarded just over $1 million from SKIP in the 2022 funding round. Additionally, the project received a 9% bond allocation in the 2024 funding round through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. Total development costs are $58 million. So the project sponsors are pursuing additional funding from King County's CHIP program, which stands for Connecting Housing to Infrastructure, and they are applying for a 4% LIHTC award. Per unit costs are about $638,000, though a more detailed breakdown of the cost by unit type is included in your memo. In terms of the changes to this project since 2022, those include 39 fewer units for families with children and fewer 30% and 60% AMI units. The current project added 18 units for households with a physical disability, 22 units for the general population, 1 unit for an on-site manager, 1 additional affordable unit, more 50% AMI units, and they added that 9% LIHTC component. Any questions on this one?
Victoria.
Thank you, Tracy. Could you just speak a little more on the deferred contingent forgivable loan? Would you mind expounding on that for me?
Yes. So a deferred contingent forgivable loan is one that they don't need to pay month to month, and that is forgivable at the end of the contracting period, so long as they maintain the agreed upon conditions within the contract.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Claire.
You're welcome.
All right, it doesn't look like anybody else. Claire, go ahead.
Habitat. Right, so Habitat for Humanity of Burien Miller Creek. So this is a 40-unit home ownership project in Burien. The project is comprised of 3 and 4 bedroom homes for purchase 20 units for households earning an average of 50% AMI, and 20 units for households earning up to 80% AMI. The project is currently under construction, and SKIP awarded the project $300,000 in the 2022 funding round, which has been requested to support the construction of 3 units for households earning 40 to 45% AMI. And we will discuss this more at our next meeting in November. All home buyers must have lived in King County for at least 1 year, and 25% of the homes are reserved for households with a connection to the community, this being defined as within 2 miles from the project. So the project will provide permanent affordability through the execution of a ground lease upon sale of the home. Habitat will have the right of first option to buy the home at an appreciated rate of 1.5% per year. When the home is resold, the price is set at the cost of acquisition and any rehabilitation needed, allowing the home to be affordable to low and moderate income buyers in perpetuity. Habitat requires that the home must be the buyer's primary residence and must be owner occupied for the life of the home. The buyer's housing costs will be kept at or below 35% of gross household income. The project has secured awards totaling $23 million and reports a funding gap of $3.3 million. The funding gap is due to increased construction costs, higher interest rates on construction loans, and lower mortgage revenue due to Habitat's commitment to serve families at lower AMIs in this development. The request to SKIP this year is $1.3 million in the form of a grant to be used for new construction on the 20 average 50% AMI buildings. The project is in Burien off State Route 509. 5 bus lines are within a mile of the property. 2 large grocery stores are located within a mile of the property. And the Homeowners Association will take on all upkeep of communal spaces on site, including building improvements with the support of a professional management company. So site work began in 2022 and vertical construction began in October of this year, so just a few weeks ago. All homes are anticipated to be move-in ready by July 2025. So this project has received extensive funding commitments from the State Housing Capital Fund, or State Housing Trust Fund, excuse me, King County, SKIP, and HUD. This year, the sponsor is applying to us and the State Housing Trust Fund Unit Subsidy Program. Total development costs are $26.2 million with a per unit cost of $655,000. In terms of the changes to this project since 2022, those include getting rid of phase 1 and 2 and building all units at once. They're also modifying the AMI level on 20 of the 40 units. Originally, when they came to us and we awarded them the funding, those 20 units were anticipated to be a maximum or up to 50% AMI, and they have since modified that to be an average of 50% AMI. So just a small change there. Any questions on this one?
Doesn't look like there are any questions.
All right.
So go ahead, Claire. Thank you. Zoom in.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. There's Carmen. Hi, Carmen. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I was just trying to find my raised hand. Yeah, so I do have one question. When talking about the residents have to have connection to community within 2 miles of the project, did I hear that correctly or did I mishear that?
So 25% of the homeowners would be prioritized for having a connection to the community within 2 miles, yes. And the remaining are folks that need a connection within King County, or that have lived in King County at least 1 year, I believe, was that requirement.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
How is one expected to prove that in an application form? The first being connection to the community within 2 miles. I guess I have a couple of questions. What does that entail, connection to the community? Because it kind of seems ambiguous to me. Does that mean like they have to have family living within 2 miles? Like they have to have a job within 2 miles? Like what would that entail? How would they prove that? And then for those that have lived in King County, if they how would they also prove that if maybe they haven't had a permanent address or been couch surfing or have had like impermanent housing? How would that kind of be tracked and proven in all those capacities?
Yeah. I can answer a part of that, and then I'll follow up with Habitat to learn more. The way I understand the within 2 miles connection is they're pretty open about what that constitutes. I had the same question, and they used things like you called it family in the area, maybe they work there. Maybe they attend religious services in the area. Maybe they are a part of a community group within that buffer area. So it could mean a lot of things. And they do have a way that they score those community preference is what they call it, community preference points. So I'd be happy to follow up and find out a little bit more about how they know that, what kind of documentation is needed to know that, and follow up with the board on that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much, Claire, for answering that question. And then my second one in regards to the King County residents for over a year, how is that kind of expected to be documented or proven if there's been unstable housing or what
Yeah.
have you?
I'll also follow up with them on that one.
All right. I appreciate that, Claire. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thanks. Good questions, Carmen. Go ahead.
Right. So Homestead Community Land Trust, Willow Crest 2. So this is the second phase of a community land trust home ownership project located in the Sunset neighborhood of Renton. The project will add 19 additional 2- and 3-bedroom townhomes to the 12 that were built in the first phase of Willow Crest. The townhomes are all 3-story with their own private garages. 12 of the townhomes will be permanently affordable homes for households earning up to 80% AMI. 3 of the townhomes will be sold to households exiting homelessness or are at imminent risk of homelessness earning up to 60% AMI. And 4 of the townhomes will be market rate homes. The townhomes are projected to be priced between $250,000 and $320,000, compared to the average sale price in the Sunset neighborhood of $583,000. The land for the second phase was transferred to Homestead in 2023 by the Renton Housing Authority. Homestead Community Land Trust develops land and housing in trust, giving lower income households the opportunity to own a home that is affordable to them and remains affordable to future homeowners. The land trust model ensures that the homes, when resold, are again sold at an affordable price to another income qualified household. The first phase of Willow Crest won the Governor's Smart Communities Award in 2022 for being the first multifamily net zero energy and permanently affordable home ownership project in King County. So the request to skip is $600,000 for new building construction, contractor overhead, and new construction contingency. Funds are requested in the form of a grant. The target population is first-time home buyers who have faced barriers to homeownership. Homestead uses affirmative and fair housing marketing plans on all its projects and anticipates households of color making up a majority of the homeowners. 10 of the original 12 homes at Willow Crest were purchased by BIPOC heads of household. SKIP funds sourced from House Bill 1590 could support the construction of the 3 townhomes reserved for households exiting homelessness earning up to 60% AMI. Should Homestead not receive an award, those units would likely be sold for general population households earning up to 80% AMI. The project is located in the Sunset neighborhood in Renton. The project is less than a half-mile from the Renton Highlands Library, the Sunset Neighborhood Park, restaurants, retail stores, a major grocery store, and bus routes that connect directly to the Renton Transit Center, nearby commercial centers, downtown Renton, and regional transit options like the Tukwila International Boulevard Light Rail Station. And an early learning center and childcare centers are also nearby. So Homestead has owned the property since early 2023. The first phase of the project is directly adjacent to the current site that we're talking about. Construction is anticipated to begin June 2025 and to be move-in ready by September 2026. So the project has received commitments from the State Housing Trust Fund, Amazon, and King County. Total development costs are $12.8 million. The per unit cost comes to $674,000. Any questions on Willow Crest 2?
I'm going to wait for just a moment. There we go. Okay, for people to get their hands raised. So Victoria, I'm going to go with you first, and then after that, you, Carmen. So go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you, Tracy. So you'll have to forgive me because we've just started as a council learning about land trusts, and we're very, very interested in them in Maple Valley and the benefits of home ownership. But my understanding, because you mentioned that 4 of them were market rate, but I thought that was kind of the point of a land trust was to keep them below market rate. So I was wondering if you could just explain that to me a little bit more, if you could.
So my understanding on the market rate units is that that subsidizes the lower income units. So the more funding, public funds, or more contributions that project would be able to secure, they could actually move some of those market rate units to a restricted AMI level. And so it's just a matter of the financing of the overall project.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And I should say also, my understanding is those units would also be required to have the same agreements that a lot similar agreements in terms of upkeep and maintenance of the properties that the income restricted units would too. So just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like, great, Victoria, thank you. It sounds like that took care of Carmen's question as well. So if there are any other questions, we'd be happy to entertain those before moving on. Okay, Claire, well, I think we're good.
All right, thank you. So the multi-service center is White River Apartments. This is a multifamily preservation and rehabilitation 24-unit rental project in Auburn. The building was constructed in 1978, and the nonprofit multi-service center took over ownership in 2000. The project consists of 24 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom units in active use, which includes 3 units serving households earning up to 30% AMI, 16 units at 45% AMI, and 5 units at 80% AMI. The 80% AMI units are currently occupied by households earning less than 60% AMI, and those units would shift to income restricted up to 60% AMI if funding is awarded. The project would not displace current residents. And you may recall this project applied last year to SKIP, but the sponsor applied for funding for 2 projects, and SKIP awarded funds to their higher priority project at the time, Victorian Place 2 in Des Moines, which we are currently in the contracting phase for right now. So the request to SKIP is $975,939 in the form of a grant. SKIP funds are requested to support the rehabilitation of the 24 units. This includes siding replacement, site lighting, parking lot improvements, including curbs and seal coating, replacing domestic hot water tanks in all the units, regrading areas adjacent to siding, and replacement of exterior entry doors. So the project is in Auburn on 34th Street Southeast. King County Metro Route 184 is located within walking distance and connects to the Auburn Transit Center and Sounder commuter rail station. South Auburn Elementary School and Game Farm Park are within a ½ mile of the project. A grocery store is located 1 mile from the project. The Multi-Service Center has owned the building since 1996, and they anticipate beginning rehab in late 2025 and finishing in that same time frame. So the project applied for funding in early 2024 to the State Housing Trust Fund, and SKIP provided a letter of support, but the Multi-Service Center was not successful in securing funding at that time. SKIP is the only funder for this rehab, and we were similar to how we were for Victorian Place 2. And if you recall last year, these smaller rehab projects are often difficult to compete for funding with at the state level, and so they just don't get funded. However, when the Multi-Service Center originally acquired the property, they received funds from the State Department of Commerce's Housing Trust Fund and King County for acquisition and rehab. So any questions on White River Apartments?
Well, I don't see any. So great job. Thank you.
So in terms of next steps, I've got the 2 questions to follow up with you, the board, about on that habitat project. So we'll get you answers to that as they come in. The advisory board is meeting November 7th. And I hope that at that meeting, they will have a funding recommendation for your consideration. A week later, on November 15th, is when we will be meeting here again to consider that recommendation. And that's what I have for this year's Housing Capital Fund. And would be happy to take any additional questions as they come up.
All right. Any questions? No other questions? Well, good. So the next item thank you, Claire. The next item on the agenda is the SKIP Legislative Priority Flyer. So at the Executive Board meeting in August, we reviewed the 2024 SKIP Legislative Priority Flyer and provided direction to staff to prepare a draft for our review. Staff will provide a brief overview of the changes made to the draft in preparation for the upcoming session. So it looks like Dorsal's going to help us through that. Go ahead, Dorsal.
Thank you, Tracy, and the Executive Board. I'm happy to provide just a quick update on the changes that I've made since we met in August. I just want to share my screen real quick. And I should note that I did send the correct draft yesterday at about 1:38 p.m. And so you should have that, and it's also attached to the calendar invitation for the meeting. And once I get your feedback today, I'll take any of your last minute feedback or suggestions, and we'll finalize the flyer, and I will send it out along with some suggested talking points that you are welcome to use in conjunction with the flyer when you're meeting with legislators As we did last year, we would really highly encourage cities to consider adding the SKHHP legislative priority as one of your legislative priorities when you're developing your own city's legislative priorities, just to present a stronger unified voice for additional funding for affordable housing here in South King County. But just talking about a couple of the changes that we made to the flyer really quickly. So we did add CTAC, no hyphen with a capital T to the banner at the top. We are out of room, so if we continue to grow, we'll have to redo the top, but we got CTAC squeezed in there. The legislative priority in the green box, it itself remains unchanged from last year, and it's just reflecting SKHHP's continued focus on increasing funding for affordable housing. In the Our Community section, I did update to include the City of SeaTax demographics, which increased the percentage of residents who identify as being a person of color to 55% in SKHHP member cities. I also updated the average household income percentage in comparison to the rest of South King County. And then lastly, the final data point, I updated around life expectancy in South King County, and this is just to reflect new data that has come out in the King County Health Needs Assessment for 2024 and 2025. And then the only other changes that were made were in the Housing Capital Fund section, and that was just to update the number of units that SKHHP has supported to 550, and to update the funding amount pool to 11 million to reflect the work that you all have done in the past year to support affordable housing in South King County. That really is the extent of the changes that I made to the flyer since you reviewed it in August. I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any other feedback or suggestion on the flyer at this time. Thanks.
Any questions or comments? Okay, well, unless there aren't any,
sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button.
Hi,
hi,
go ahead.
Sochi from King County. So I just wanted to share, we started doing some data analysis about where the market rents are and where need is and things like that. Because one of the things that we have been hearing is that affordable housing providers have been struggling to lease up units that are studios or one bedrooms from the 60% AMI to 80% AMI range. And that's because those units are starting, because income is so high here, that the market rate rent is fairly close to what the income restricted rent would be for those units. And so for the workforce housing, it might be worth either and specifying a specific AMI or emphasizing the family sized units, because specifically family sized units for every single income bracket is the thing that is the hardest to find, the most expensive, and the thing that doesn't get prioritized unless there's a lot of incentive and or requirement to do so, because generally it's so much cheaper and easier to build studios. So, if you, for example, if you have an inclusionary housing policy that's pretty broad, developers will generally default to studios or one bedrooms. And so I think in terms of highlighting workforce housing, it might be worth just either putting AMIs and the biggest need for smaller units would be below 60% AMI, or highlighting the need for family sized units, or both.
Thank you, Sochi. Does anybody have a comment on that? I think Carmen chimed in on the chat that she appreciates those comments. Anybody have any other thoughts on those? Carmen, go ahead.
I just want to say that I support making that change, actually, because workforce housing can be kind of ambiguous. I think sometimes we just automatically think blue collar. My brain, when I hear workforce housing, goes to like apprenticeships and trades, but workforce housing can be a variety of types, correct? And so I think that specification should be made. We should be more specific there. So I just wanted to kind of amplify those thoughts that were shared. And I also just appreciate the update to the data that was just presented. Thank you.
So, so when you mean by second that, it didn't come across as a motion, but a recommendation. So, and it wasn't as specific, I think, as we would need for legislative priorities. So, is there any other thoughts on? Are you recommending an amendment to these bullets, or are you recommending an additional bullet? And what would you like it to say, Sochi?
So I think I would say something like workforce housing, especially units below 60% AMI or smaller units below 60% AMI and family sized units at every income level. I feel like that's not very eloquent, but that's the basics.
Okay, so Dorsal, you're the one who does, okay, I was going to ask Dorsal about possibility of amending that. Go ahead, James, step on in if you've got a question or comment.
Oh yeah, I was wondering, administrative procedures for Skip, are we allowed to vote via email? Because I think we could let, you know, if Sochi, if you're willing to work with Dorsal or someone on tightening the language, and then could we approve remotely, you know, via email, or do we have to be live in these meetings to approve language on this?
Well, and the other thing is, the next question also is there a timeline? I think I read a little bit of a timeline there. So Dorsal, can you help us out there? Let's say if you amended this to bring it back, is that too long of a time? And then yes.
And I did add some language in the chat, if helpful. So like if there's a need to just put something for time's sake, there's something in the chat to consider. And I'm not very good at Robert's Rules of Order or anything like that. So if I need to make some formal motion, happy to do so.
Well, it is a little bit casual here. We do call ourselves by our first names. And so if there is a desire to go ahead and add something like that and we add it here, I don't think that there would be a problem in making that part of, I think we've got a quorum here, correct, Claire?
You have a quorum, and I would say we can, if folks have feelings on the language we're proposing, we should discuss that now, because I think we can't take votes outside, I would say, and we weren't planning on making a motion for this flyer. This is more informational. You know, folks can share it as they want, but I think that Dorsal's got the language in there. So if folks have other suggestions on language, I would make a suggestion to remove workforce housing especially, and just say smaller sized units below 60% AMI, just in order to keep less text.
So you do workforce housing semicolon defined by the next part of the sentence, correct?
Or just take out workforce housing and say smaller sized units below 60% AMI and family sized units.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Hey, Carmen here. I actually kind of like the idea of focusing on workforce housing, but maybe I'm being too particular. I'm totally flexible on this, by the way, but just stating my initial thoughts.
I think one of the things with workforce housing is I have seen people define it all the way up to 120% AMI. So you're talking about people who are six figures in this region. And so I think if we have workforce housing in here, and I'm not, I think what Claire is saying makes sense for the terms of just being concise. But if you do want to include the term workforce housing, it's important to define what you're specifically talking about.
I think that was going to land similar to that, Sochi, in that the folks that we're sending this to, right, this is going to be, I mean, I'm guessing a lot of this is going to the state, right, state electeds. They work in multiple sectors of workforce housing, and so they'd probably have to follow up and ask which part of workforce housing are we prioritizing. So I think if we include the term, and I do kind of like having the term, I think it makes sense, but it is a clunky big sentence there. I think it's okay though, because again, this isn't a marketing piece for people off the street, right? This is for electeds at the state level who are used to getting, it can be imperfect in the spacing of the, lettering or whatever. I know you're going to clean the font up, but I mean, it's okay if it's a big, long sentence, I think, because it gets the specificity that will let the state legislators include language that appeals to our sensibility around what kind of housing we want to see.
Chair, if I can't find my hand raised button with all the other screens open.
No worries, Darcel, go ahead.
There was one suggestion. It would require a secondary document, but James made a suggestion at the August meeting about potentially there being a supplemental document to this that actually defines all of the housing types basically mentioned in the flyer, like provides a skip definition. And so if the concern is we want to clarify this, but the wording on the front flyer is too large, maybe it makes sense to do the additional document, which could then go further and not just define what skip means by workforce housing, but provide definitions by what skip means for the permanent supportive housing, preservation, and these other types of projects. Just mentioning that from the August meeting.
And we do have talking points that go along with this document that we'll be providing that wouldn't necessarily be what you're handing a legislator. So definitions could also go in there too. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I think one thing about glossaries is I think a lot of people tend not to read them. And so like that's the struggle, right, with trying to be concise and with being clear. So I think that's just one thing to keep in mind. And so.
Well, and I do want to add a little thing. Several of you have been to Olympia before, and what that environment is like. You want to get something across, it's going to, a lot of times, unless they're already an advocate for a particular thing themselves, and you're there in their office, you get a certain amount of time. There's a gajillion things going through their mind while they're even making eye contact with you, sitting on their chair. These things need to be, you've got a lot of things on this front page that are probably not going to be read by anybody. They're going to look at a few things that they think are important. And that's why I think that the phrase workforce housing is important to put there, because they have these keywords that they're advocating for this session, most of them. And so they're going to be looking for that. And then a little definition is nice. But if we hand too much to somebody, they're not going to read anything. That's what I fear. Sometimes it's really hard to cut through the cloud when you're advocating. James.
I was just going to say Sochi, I agree that most folks don't read glossaries, but I think legislative assistants do. And so I think like in LA, I've sent stuff to LAs that I was like, oh crap, they found typos that I forgot that I even attached that document. Sorry, pardon my language. And so I think an LA might look at whether it's a glossary or talking points, whatever it is, that's where that clarification can come from. And that's who, the state folks are going to be, that's who's generating the meat of the language behind anything that gets proposed, I think, right? It's coming from LAs and who are trading horses with other LAs down there and trying to make sure that it gets up to 80% or 60% or 120%, right? So I think there is a decent chance that someone would actually read it. if we're worried about bulking up the front of this too much and making sure the electeds actually see the key terms that we want. I don't know if I'm making a motion. I'm just
So
saying.
back to the bullet. Sochi, how do you feel about that bullet? James, how do you feel about that bullet? Carmen, how do you feel about that bullet? And if there's somebody that feels real strong, are we willing to compromise on it? Carmen.
I would like to keep workforce housing. I like it as it's written on the screen that I see right here. I think that is good in my opinion.
Okay, great. James.
I agree with Carmen.
Okay, Sochi.
Yeah, this works.
Anybody else have anything to add to that or any opposition to the addition here?
Oh, I would support the statement Carmen made.
Okay.
And
Good,
I support too. Maple Valley does.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Okay, we're getting some thumbs and some hearts. So it looks like we have some direction here and feel good about this. My personal compliment is great job in highlighting the one legislative priority there, setting it apart from the rest of the text, knowing that all the rest of it is going to fill in blanks. But that was nice and clear, upper right-hand corner. Good job in getting all the cities across the top. So just my compliments on the page itself. So nice. All right. Well, it looks like we have direction on that and a great presentation. Any other, anything else you'd like to add, Dorsal?
Just thank you, and I will get the formatting fixed for that sentence so it'll align.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, well, looks like the next thing is general updates. So Claire, if you could provide us with any updates since our last meeting.
Certainly. So I know that you all were receiving these kind of general updates, which I really liked. So thought we would continue the tradition. So I'm going to start with just a big thank you to Dorsal, Skip's program coordinator, for his support to this board in my absence. It was a tremendous help, and so lots of kudos to Dorsal. And also wanted to thank Jeff Tate, who supported the board as well during my leave. It was a luxury to not have to worry about what was happening here at Skip over the summer. So many thanks to everyone. The King County Council adopted the 2025 work plan and budget on October 7th. Which was our last SKIP member jurisdiction to take action. And now that document is effective. So thank you to everyone that supported that process. And the Q2 SKIP progress report that was presented at your August meeting was modified to correct a fund balance reporting error and was distributed to the staff work group on September 25th. The Affordable Housing Tour took place during our last meeting on September 20th. So a big thank you to Dorsal for organizing that outing, and to our participating developers, the Multi-Service Center, Habitat for Humanity, and Homestead Community Land Trust. And we are working on a video to share out. So thank you to the board members that were able to attend that as well. Skip hosted Sound Transit at the August South King County Joint Planners and Developers meeting to discuss upcoming opportunities for TOD housing in South King County. SKHHP, which is our planners from all of our members' jurisdictions, met on October 1st to discuss current STEP ordinance drafts as required under House Bill 1220. This requires jurisdictions to update their development regulations with respect to shelters, transitional housing, emergency housing, and permanent supportive housing. Our staff work group met on October 2nd, and Dorsal and I have been reviewing the 6 project proposals received for this year's Housing Capital Fund that we briefed you on today. And our advisory board met on October 3rd to review those applications. Next meeting, in addition to considering a funding recommendation from the advisory board, we'll be discussing how you would like to receive information when a project that SKIP awarded funds to previously changes, and what process that should look like. So just want to give you a heads up on that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions for Claire? Okay. So we have a few minutes left. If anybody would like to share anything, any updates or announcements from your city, now is the time. You feel free to do that. I think everybody would like to enjoy a little bit longer Friday afternoon, maybe. So, well, okay, I see that, Sean. Thank you. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, and of course, I may be speaking for Claire, but feel free to send any clarifications or questions on to Claire during the week or the time when we're not meeting, if something comes to mind. But if we don't have anything else, I am happy to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Sean. And a second. All right. We are adjourned. Enjoy your afternoon. Thanks you and your weekend.
Welcome back, Claire. An awesome job also while you were gone. So seriously.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.